Good afternoon. Thanks for joining me on the Jena Colbourne Show. One day late. Sorry about that, guys, but you know, technical difficulties happen to us. It's just an internet problem. But thank you for coming back on this Thursday afternoon to check out the show. Thanks for following the group and joining the group, the Jena Colbourne Show. Of course, I would love it if you would hit share right there, okay? Let your friends know that we are live Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, except for today. We're live on Thursday. But we have a big show coming up today, a really big show. I'm very excited to share this show with you because I do believe every time we share our stories, we get stronger and we get better. So I'm very excited to be sharing this story today in honor of Sexual Violence Awareness Month. We have Maryn Sutherland on the show today, and she is going to recount her story and her experience back in 2018 when she had just turned 21. She was getting ready to celebrate her 21st birthday, in fact, when she became a victim of sexual violence, and she is now a survivor of sexual violence. So we're going to talk to her about the incident as well as how she's overcoming trauma. Speaking of trauma, we have hooked up with Richel Brousseau. She works just outside of St. Paul, and her company is Lacuna and Lucidity Wellness Co. And she deals with trauma healing. We're going to be talking to her about trauma healing, what it is, and ways she can help you with a holistic approach to trauma healing. That's all coming up today on the Jena Colbourne Show, along with a special interview. It's a guest interview by our very own Caitlin. She is going to be on with the Dragonfly Centre. This is a very special interview, so make sure you guys stick around for today. And the Dragonfly Centre all month is honoring Sexual Violence Awareness Month. They are selling teal ribbons throughout the community. You can pick one up at Home Hardware Bonnyville, PharmaSave, Telliers, or the Bonnyville Health Clinic, and wear your teal ribbon with pride. All right, coming up today, we also have the wonderful Wendy Plandowski of Project Gazelle. We're going to be talking about incubator spaces and how female entrepreneurs can take advantage of the wonderful programming at Project Gazelle. Stick around. We'll be right back with Maryn Sutherland on the Jena Colbourne Show.
𝘀𝗲𝗋Pharmacy is proud to be celebrating 50 years in the community of Bonnyville. And we're even more proud to help grow the community through our Local Supporting Local initiative. Come into 𝘀𝗲𝗋's and you'll find a vast selection of local products made right here in the Lakeland region. We have unique gifts and specialty items, along with everything you'd expect to find at your local pharmacy. At 𝘀𝗲𝗋's, you'll get that small town service with a smile. Compassionate local pharmacists who are dedicated to the community's health and wellness. 𝘀𝗲𝗋 Pharmacy offers the Simple program, a brand which synchronizes your medications with unique packaging designed to make your life and your medication simple. While you're shopping, be sure to grab a specialty coffee from our 1929 coffee bar, stocked full with drinks, soups, sandwiches, and more. Celebrate 50 years with 𝘀𝗲𝗋's, local supporting local.
Welcome back to the Jena Colbourne Show. I am joined virtually by Maryn Sutherland. Maryn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Maryn, I want to start things off by just commending you on how brave you are to share your story today. I think it's going to go a long way to help survivors of sexual violence, male and females alike.
Aw, thank you. I do try and, keep my platform lighthearted, and I try to share my story as much as I can. So that's the ultimate goal for me.
Well, I wanted to take things back to 2018, if you will. You had just turned 21. And you were going out to celebrate. You were actually the designated driver that evening. And tell me what happened when you decided, hey, I'm going to go into town, because you lived in the country. You're going into Lloydminster to celebrate. Can you share with us what happened?
Yeah, so I grew up out of town in Lloydminster, and so I had driven this road hundreds of thousands of times I went to school in Lloyd too, so I was very familiar with the roads, and I was driving in just to celebrate my birthday, and I was planning on driving and stuff, and I had pulled over on the side of the road, and a vehicle with 3 men pulled up, and they stabbed me and they assaulted me and beat me up pretty bad, and that's kind of the short version of what had happened. And yeah, I never ended up going out. I went straight to the hospital and received amazing care and from all the nurses and doctors involved and all the services, the victim services and people. So yeah, that's kind of the short version of what had happened.
Well, what's interesting about what had happened, Maryn, is you were conditioned in a way, like many females are, to be aware of your surroundings and to not take risks, if you were. So you actually chose to pull over on the side of the road rather than in a dimly lit bar parking lot because you were conditioned to know like that might not be safe.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was much more comfortable just with no one around me on the side of the road. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I'm very comfortable in surroundings like that, and I would just have rather have done it where, you know, I didn't have to look around and check my surroundings and stuff. And that was my plan. And unfortunately, it did happen that, you know, that was when these men pulled up and did do that stuff to me. So yeah.
Maryn, you say you drove yourself to the hospital. Were you really aware of what had happened, or were you kind of like living outside your body at that time?
I don't think I was fully really aware. I knew what had happened, obviously. I knew that my injuries were pretty severe and that I needed help. But I don't think it quite hit me until I actually arrived at the hospital and was immediately taken into the trauma room. And there was people all around me, and there was cops and nurses and doctors. And that's kind of when I was it kind of hit me that, you know, it was a lot more severe than I had been telling myself. And I think it was the adrenaline too that had kind of pushed me to, you know, just fix it myself. I grew up with 3 brothers in, you know, a ranching family. So, you know, you grow up fixing things yourself and doing things, you know, as much as you can. And so I think that was just kind of instinct, just to take it, you know, do it myself and, you know, let's just make sure I can get there. And then it kind of hit me after the whole, once I actually got into the trauma room and had, you know, all of these professionals around me and helping me as much as they could.
This happened in 2018, and I feel like yearly we're making such huge strides towards trauma healing and towards helping victims of sexual assaults and helping people who have been assaulted in general. What services were available now then? And what's available now? Like, is it fairly the same?
In my experience, so the night that I had gone into the hospital, immediately it was dispatched to the 𝘀𝗵𝗄𝗏 Sexual Assault Center, and a rep had came from there. And everyone that I dealt with at the Sexual Assault Center in Lloyd has been amazing. They have such great services. But victim services from the RCMP detachment also was called in. So there was that. And then, you know, I think just depending on your location as well, I know the Dragonfly over in Bonnyville area, they have some great services as well. There's so many great nonprofits that really take concrete steps to fighting this. It's an epidemic, it's a crisis, and there's so many great resources, and it is hard to kind of go through and find the right place for you. I think it just comes down to, you know, trial and error and finding someone that you can talk to and work with along this journey that, you know, a lot of women are on, so, and men.
Mm-hmm. For your case, Maryn, the assailants, the 3 men, have not been found. How are you dealing with trauma knowing that these men might still be out there somewhere?
Yeah, I think, you know, I have such a deep and profound relationship to fear as a whole. And so, you know, trying to go through my daily life knowing that, you know, my case is still open, it's not closed. It's definitely something that that I have to work through every day. And that's something that I'm willing to do as well. But, you know, I think there's always going to be a sense of fear and hypervigilance and paranoia that's going to accompany me alongside the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. And I've found ways to deal with it and just kind of, you know, work through that fear in a healthy and conscious way and just acknowledge it and then move on and keep going. So that's all I can really do.
Do you feel there'll ever be closure, whether that's emotional or with the case itself, like physically someone being arrested for this? Do you feel you'll find closure one day?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. Realistically, there's nothing that we can do right now. But if there does come a day that they're found, I'm aware that I'm going to have to go through, probably some dehumanizing trials and just kind of, all of the court process. It's dark and messy and something that I'll probably have to go through if it does happen that way. So it's hard for me to kind of try and move on and make concrete steps to, moving on with my life, knowing that that's in sort of the back. But, it's a bridge that I'm going to cross when I get there. I have amazing support from my family and from my community as well. They've rallied so fearlessly behind me. And so I feel a lot, not that I'm ready for it, but, I can handle it if it does come to that. And I have people in my corner, and I'm so grateful for that always. So.
Maryn, I've noticed while speaking with you, you smile a lot. You have a lot of joy in your voice, and you have a lot of joy in general. Do you feel like this incident has caused you to be less joyful? Because you seem very, smiley and happy and with a good aura.
I think that, I dealt a lot at the beginning with a lot of sorrow and shame and grief. And I still deal with that. My hurt is loud just as much as my joy is loud. And I think that, grief does not mean absence of joy. I think Western society too has done a big part in kind of, dictating us that if we're in pain, we have to subscribe to this pain at all times. And that you have to be public in facing this pain and, with no room for joy. In the midst of your healing. And I just think that that's not true. I think that, even in trauma and even in awful things, we can still find joy, whether that be, for me, it's, it's books, it's being outside with my animals and my family and my friends. And I'm probably, it took me a long time to access that joy again. I told myself for a long time that I was not allowed pleasure and joy after this. And that was just simply not true, and something that, and I think, with more and more fearless women who are speaking out and, showing the rest of us that, you can live and lead a very joyful life in the midst of this, trauma and healing, has been so profound for me, and such a realization that I try and take with me every day, especially, in dealing with people. I love to just, put that face of myself forward. I would rather people know me as being, a joyful person, a hopeful person, an optimistic person, rather than, someone who's hateful and who's so subscribed to through. And I can't touch on evil without touching upon goodness as well. So I think that's an important avenue that I've tried to explore a bit, and I'm still doing that every day. So.
Well, we've seen over the past few years the Me Too movement. Have you found that movement to be helpful for you?
I think I definitely think so. The Me Too movement, it's something that's just so broad as well, and existing digitally during a period of human identity and technology and culture and politics and discourse, I think, is to exist in this intolerable black hole of just everyday escalating conflict. And, realistically, I think that the Me Too movement, it's so inspiring to me just to see, women speak up so fearlessly, and I'm so grateful for it. And being able to find a community in such hurt and trauma is something that is also deeply profound. And I think that it would be a lot harder to navigate these prisms of hurt without it. I think it'd be a lot harder being able to look at these women who are, and men who are just fearlessly advocating for themselves and each other is just very empowering. And so I'm so grateful to always be a part of it and to speak on it anytime that I am asked. So.
Maryn, do you consider yourself a survivor?
Definitely, absolutely. I think that survivorship is something that means something different for everyone. So, you know, being a survivor doesn't really tell me anything about, you know, who someone is or what they fight for or anything like that. You get to decide that. And so I've gotten to decide that as well. And I think that's been, it's something that, you know, I'm still trying to figure out and get my feet underneath me for, but I definitely do. And I think that survivors always, you know, deserve safety and joy and freedom. And I think I'm living proof of that. So yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for being so brave with us today and sharing your story. I do believe it's going to go a long way to help people.
Thank you for having me. I was so joyed that you guys asked me to come on and speak a little about, you know, what's on my mind as far as the past few years have gone. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Thanks, Maryn.
Of course.
Good morning, Caitlin here with Lakeland Connect, and May is Sexual Violence Awareness Month all across the country, and you as community members of the Lakeland, there are opportunities for you to show your support and help raise awareness for this cause, and we're going to actually check in with members of the Dragonfly Centre, Counseling and Support for Sexual Assault Survivors. So we have Penny Vassar and 𝘀𝗲𝗍𝗂, who are counselors and community engagement coordinators, who are able to explain, ladies, how any person in the community can join in on your guys' cause to raise awareness for Sexual Violence Awareness Month. Penny, why don't you start explaining that?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot, Caitlin, for having us. So, you know, the Dragonfly Centre is really unique in that we support survivors of sexual violence every day of the year. However, each May we do something a little different. So May is Sexual Violence Awareness Month, and we can call it 𝘄𝗲𝗹 for short. And what this is it's an annual campaign to raise, you know, public awareness about sexual assault, to educate communities and individuals about the prevalence of sexual assault, and just to give you an idea of how prevalent sexual violence is in our society, I can share a few findings from a study that was conducted by our provincial organization, the Association of Alberta Sexual Assault Services. So, you know, a lot of people don't realize how prevalent sexual violence actually is, and they're really surprised when they look at the numbers. So I'm just curious, Caitlin, if you might have an idea of how many people have been impacted by sexual violence.
I would likely think it's greater than half the adult population. I'm not too in the know.
Yeah, no, and you know, like I said, it's a lot of people are really surprised when they look at the numbers, but unfortunately, so every 2 in 3 women and 1 in 3 men have been impacted by sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. So if you go to the grocery store and you look at how many women and men, you know, comprise, you know, are in a grocery store at one time, you know, the numbers are incredible. And really that makes up about 45% of all Albertans. Like, that's huge. And so what's even really more astonishing is the fact that most of the sexual violence that Albertans have experienced is was perpetrated by somebody that they know. So that's even really more crazy.
You know, great facts, you bringing that to light, how serious it is, and hopefully that, you know, intrigues a person to want to get involved with 𝗀𝗃𝗏, and how can they do that?
Yeah, and so basically during Sexual Violence Awareness Month, we're asking individuals and communities across the country to just engage with the issue. And so how they can do that is just recognize that, you know, nearly every Canadian household is impacted by sexual violence at some point. And people can share statistics, you know, such as the ones we've talked about today, you know, share information, find out more information about sexual violence, volunteer, donate, and I can turn it over to Angel just to expand on that a little bit more.
Perfect.
Hi, so yeah, during 𝗀𝗃𝗏 and for the month of May, we're painting the town teal. So as you're driving down Main Street, watch for those banners and flags that we have from the lights all the way to Subway. Have a look also at the mural on our office window. As you're walking by, stop by, take a photo, tag yourself on your feeds, and tag us on our socials as well. We're located right across Subway and right next door to Warehouse 1. Also, on May 4th, we're having a day of action, and we encourage everybody to wear teal, as that's the, you know, the color of sexual assault and sexual awareness. Use the hashtags you see there behind Caitlin on the screen, and again, tag those on our social media sites as well. Check out what you need to do in order to get into our weekly gift basket draw. We'll be doing that announcement every Thursday for the month of May. You may be entitled to win a really great gift basket from us.
Nice.
And you know, as you may be aware, we are a non-for-profit organization, and so all of our mandated services are free. And you know, we're hoping that, you know, you can participate in our fundraising campaign. So we have a thermometer. Again, you'll see it behind Caitlin coming up. Let's raise this thermometer together in the following ways. So some of our staff will be making their way through town doing a poster campaign. These posters can be purchased for $5. So that's literally the same amount as 2 cups of coffee. So we ask that you hang these posters in your windows to help spread that awareness. And posters can also be purchased at our Bonnyville office. We are also doing a Raise the Dough fundraiser. You can purchase special donuts from the 3 locations you see here on the screen in Cold Lake from May 18th to the 31st. And all those proceeds will be coming back to us. They are accepting pre-orders, and if you are in Cold Lake, they are also offering to deliver those donuts to you. So, and finally, we have our teal ribbon campaign. As you can see, Penny and I are wearing our teal ribbons today. You can show that support by purchasing a teal ribbon from the Bonnyville Home Hardware, the medical clinic, Guardian Drugs, and Pharmacy in town. Those boxes have already been set up and they're ready to go. So again, please stay tuned on our socials, and you can find more details there.
Thank you, Angel. Question for Penny. You said earlier that you guys do provide support for survivors of sexual violence every day of the year. It's not just something in May, obviously. So if someone does feel like they need help, how can they reach out? Are you guys the right venue to turn to?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I guess what I would say to people is that you don't have to wait until you can no longer cope. And you don't have to be going through something big to access services with us. So I sort of equivocate it like going to the chiropractor, right? Don't come to us when you have a really bad back. Try to do some preventative work and you know, come and see us before things get too big. So really, counseling is for anyone who wants to just engage in self-improvement, learn new strategies, coping tools, build quality of life, I like to say. Or really, it can also be for anyone who's supporting a survivor of sexual violence. So we also work with parents, spouses, anybody who's, you know, needing support with maybe psychoeducational material is what we call it, where we're providing information and guidance about how someone can support somebody who's experienced sexual violence or trauma. And incidents don't have to be recent events. Sometimes people come to us because events are historical, so they happened a long time ago. And so just, you know, I'd really like to just make note that our services are free, our services are confidential, And as well, we also offer a fee-for-service as well. So this is just generalized counseling for people who may not have experienced sexual violence, but maybe they're just going through a big life transition, or they're stressed out because of COVID, and so they're just needing some generalized support. So we do offer a sliding scale, and that just means, you know, we can look at, you know, how much people can afford and whether they have benefits or things like that. So yeah, so just a heads up, we can do that.
Okay.
As well.
Awesome. There's many ways out there, many platforms is how someone can access your services. You guys even have some new opportunities for that. Where do they go to figure out how they can access your services?
Yeah, awesome. I guess the biggest place to start off is you can access our website. So it's the dragonflycentre.com. And on that Dragonfly Centre, it's up on the screen there. We also have a new chat support line for immediate help. So what you can do is just go on the bottom of the screen. There's a little icon there and it says Get Support Now. You can click on that little icon. Our services can also be accessed by calling our main office. Our phone numbers I see are up on the screen. And all of our services are accessible Monday to Thursday is our office hours from 8:30 to 4 p.m. So I guess really when all is said and done, just reach out. The Dragonfly Centre, we're here for you.
Thank you very much to 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗎 as well as 𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗵𝗄𝗃 of the Dragonfly Centre, offering counseling and support for sexual assault survivors. Also be sure to stay tuned on their Facebook all month of May to get involved in Sexual Violence Awareness Month. For Lakeland Connect, I'm Caitlin. Now you have been connected.
Muse-inspired in Cold Lake is not your average clothing store. You'll discover unique brands like Sandwich, Papillon, Camp, Dex, Spiritual Gangster, and more. Accessorize your outfit with shoes, bags, outerwear, and jewelry. Find one-of-a-kind gift ideas and don't miss out on their monthly sip and shop. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to get inspired. Muse-inspired in Cold Lake and online, 𝘀𝗲𝗋𝗄𝗃.com. What's up? Welcome back to the Jena Colbourne Show. I'm joined by Richel Brousseau of Lacuna and Lucidity, and here today to talk about your services that you offer, and specifically when it comes to healing trauma and what you can do that's outside of your Western medicine options. This is more of a holistic healing.
Absolutely it is.
So let's talk about trauma and why it's important to heal from trauma.
Absolutely. So trauma being, there's all sorts of different perceptions and understandings of what trauma is. And that's where it's absolutely individual to every single person who has experienced trauma, because it is not a cookie cutter understanding for every single person. And that's where within my four walls of my office, there is no such thing as dignifying or creating your trauma to be relevant. It's whatever you've experienced that you feel is traumatic for you that we are working with. And so trauma is not something that's been done to you, it's what is done within you that has created issues from what has happened around you. And so that is for me coming to the understanding that when we have trauma, it's really separating us from ourselves and from the wholeness of who we are. And that's where I call them big trauma wounds or tumbleweeds within my office setting, where it's talking about these gaping holes that kind of fester and change and create issues within the wholeness of who you are through your lifetime. And that's where my understanding of trauma comes from conception to when we decide to pass over to the other side. And so with trauma being something that is so cumulative over time, there is something within that where everybody has a little bit of trauma, whether we like to put that label on it or not.
Well, I wanted to talk because trauma, we often think like it's a mental and emotional game.
Yes.
But sometimes when unhealed trauma goes on, it can turn into a physical manifestation in your body.
Absolutely. And that is where in medicine, we really try to focus on one thing at a time, because our bodies are so expansive. They are so innately knowledgeable and understandable and really evolutionized. And that is where in Western medicine, it's hard to really look at the whole picture, because sometimes there's a few things going on. And so that is where, in my understanding, everything that we physically experience as dysfunction, dis-ease, or discomfort comes from an emotional root, which is why sometimes the medications won't work, why different therapies won't work, is because it's not looking at the fact that we're coming from an emotional root of why trauma is manifesting.
So what's some of the services that you offer to help overcome trauma or to help heal trauma?
Absolutely. So my understanding of trauma and what I've created it to be as a service is what I call trauma release. And so that is working with every single person who comes into being in connection with me, working with different modalities, breath work, body talk, Reiki, reflexology, looking at different manifestations and working with the body and not against the body to help take those trauma wounds that are festering and changing and bringing them into a manageable way so that you can move through your life on an easier level and not always being chained down by what you've experienced.
I wanted to talk about one element of your services that's a little unique to the area, I think. And I haven't seen it elsewhere. It may exist elsewhere in this area, but you focus in as well on childbirth and postpartum and continuing care. And from my own experience, I will say childbirth is traumatic. Like, there's lots of joys involved in it, but the process itself is traumatic. So can you talk a little bit about your postpartum trauma release care?
Absolutely. So my background is actually as a registered nurse, and I dived right into labor and delivery straight out of school, which has been an absolute passion of mine, where I have been able to help moms journey through that transition from embracing and looking at motherhood and then transitioning into actual motherhood within the moment that that baby is laid on their chest. And within that, Western medicine, unfortunately, has so many jobs, and there's so many ways that we have to see different people. There's only so many doctors and nurses within the world. And so as long as everything appears to be normal, we just journey through working with the next mom that comes in and however that looks. And unfortunately, that's not always everyone's experience. I've seen many women have extremely traumatic deliveries and postpartum periods, and it'd be like, oh, but you have a healthy baby. And that's okay, and that's all well, but there's also that understanding that that mom's life has forever changed. And that's where my understandings and research and teachings within Chinese medicine, body talk, different holistic therapies, there's so much that our bodies will take on for us and protect us with without us really paying attention. And so different things that happen to our bodies create this chain of domino effects where we will experience those changes within ourselves for years to come if we don't validate and understand why it is our bodies have now changed. I work with lots of moms who are now understanding that their bodies just don't feel the same, that their minds and their thought patterns aren't the same, struggling with postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. And some of that may be just different things happening in their lives, but a lot of it comes down to the understanding that their body has endured significant trauma. That's where we have perineal tearing, C-sections, these different things that happen to our bodies in order to have a child can do serious damage to the 𝗀𝗏𝗃, which is a piece of Chinese medicine, to the different meridians within our bodies that will then limit our ability for our bodies to innately heal. And that's something that comes down to the bare bones of what it is I do, is that I always enact the healing cascade of our innate beings. And that is where our body has the ability to heal itself. We just have to give it the recognition of what it is that is causing an issue in order for it to go ahead and heal those things. because it's almost like you can't go and buy something from the store if you don't see it or if you don't know it exists, and that's exactly how our bodies function.
Well, Richel, I'm actually going to do a session with you today, and I'm going to report back to everybody on how that session went.
Wonderful.
So that's private, though. We won't be doing it on the show. So I'll report back on that. But how can someone get a hold of you to book a session?
Absolutely. So I have my website, letthelightin.ca. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Lacuna and Lucidity Wellness Co. And those are the main platforms that you can always connect with me. And I'm so grateful that you're here today to be in connection.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
When we look at Project Gazelle, any female-owned business is at least 50% owned. They can be part of Project Gazelle.
I was fortunate enough to be to start out with Project Gazelle right at the very start. What I found with Project Gazelle is it's helped us to build those soft skills that maybe then I've been able to bring back into the organization.
We call them incubator spaces, but in a lot of ways they're actually co-working spaces. And so what a co-working space is maybe you're working from home and you just want to get out of the house and have connections with other people. There's equipment, for example, we are going to have some specialized lighting and that type of thing. So if you're selling a product and you're wanting to use your smartphone to take pictures, you've got the proper lighting for it. We do have computers, and they're located in spaces where there's supports available to you as well. We also have gone with a concept called Cafe Inc. And that's where we've partnered with a cafe in a community, and they will be a Project Gazelle Cafe Inc. They can go in, we have what we call a portfolio. It's got a tablet in there, it's got information about the project. So for example, maybe you're down working in Wainwright one day and you can go into our Cafe Inc. there and access some of the Gazelle resources.
And this is an entrepreneurship strategy that is meant to be at your pace. It's meant to provide you with services and enhance your skill set at no cost to you.
Welcome back to the Jena Colbourne Show. So excited to have Wendy back on the show today. And Wendy, of course, is with Project Gazelle. And we're going to talk about the incubator spaces that are available, as well as Cafe Inc. Could you tell me where the incubators are and why we're excited about them?
For sure. So we have a number of incubators set up, but definitely we have in our sort of local listening area, we have our incubator set up there in Bonnyville at Community Futures. It's a fantastic space. We've also got our incubator set up in Lloydminster as well. And then we have this really cool network of Cafe Incs. that once we get the restrictions lifted a little bit with COVID, we're going to have Cafe Incs. located right across northeastern and northern Alberta and Saskatchewan. So it's going to be really great.
So for the incubator spaces, what can I do to take advantage of it?
So with the incubator spaces, I mean, essentially you are just going to drop in depending on restrictions and that sort of thing. With COVID right now, it's a little bit strange, but you can go in and make use of all of the tools and services that they would have to offer there. So for example, they might have lightbox equipment that you can go in and take really great pictures of your products. So, you know, it's kind of almost infrastructure equipment along with the human services that they'll also offer as well with the incubators, printers, and that sort of thing. So
do you have to be a member of Project Gazelle, or how does it work?
Yeah, we would recommend that you take access of Project Gazelle's services, which are incredibly easy to sign up for. I mean, I think the intake takes maybe 15 minutes. Once you're part of Project Gazelle, then we will, you know, give you all of the information that you need to access any of the incubators that are located across Alberta. And also, once you're part of Project Gazelle, then you'll get information on the different events that are coming up and all of that. So it's really great to be part of the project from that perspective, as opposed to Cafe Inc. So with the Cafe Inc. model, you actually don't have to be a member of Project Gazelle yet. You could just sort of be in that, brainstorming kind of stage where you're thinking about starting a business. And, you happen to be in Cold Lake, close to the bean tree, for example, and then you'd be able to go in and access some of the services that we'll have offered there. The Cafe Inc. model won't be officially launched until September, just because of COVID. But we are starting to offer a virtual Cafe Inc., which would be, some question and answer sessions online and that sort of thing.
Well, what I find really interesting about the incubator spaces is a lot of females work from home, but they have limitations because they have children at home as well. Or they're not able to meet clients or have people over to their home. So the incubator is a really great in-between where you can take advantage of that office space, but not necessarily the overhead of an office space.
Yeah, incubators have been really, really important across Alberta for startups. And having worked in an incubator now for a couple of years, they're exactly what you just explained, Jenna. They're a spot where you can go get out of your own environment. But, we've even had people who have their own offices come in and use incubator spaces because they're an opportunity to collaborate. They're an opportunity to get out of your space and maybe, tap into some additional creative juices that might, arrive to you because you're not stuck in your own environment. But they're really about that collaboration piece, that networking. And, it does seem strange after being part of, this COVID era, but it's going to come back and we're going to be able to do that again. And our incubators will just be ready when the restrictions are lifted.
So Wendy, do I have to sign into a term, or is it a drop-in situation, or month by month?
So every incubator has sort of different protocols. So what I would recommend is that you contact Project Gazelle to find out where the closest incubator is to you. And even if you're traveling, right, there's different incubators that are set up. And most of them are just a drop-in basis. And so you'd be able to just go in and utilize the space, and there's no official, membership card or anything like that you have to use. We're not quite that official yet, so.
Well, I absolutely love Project Gazelle and talking about all the programs available. If you want to find out more, how do we get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So just check out the Project Gazelle website and projectgazelle.ca, I think. I got to check that out, Jenna.
Yeah, you're correct.
And I've been also promoting the gazelle.ca, so I just had to make sure I had my websites right. And then we'll point you in the right direction. And you can also call any of the Community Futures offices. So we have multiple Community Futures offices around the province that are part of our project. And so you'd be able to just give a call to Community Futures Lakeland, for example, and they'd be able to refer you into the program, or Community Futures Lloydminster and Region. So any of the Community Futures that are in the area will be able to refer you into the program and get you started on the right path.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Wendy. Always a pleasure talking about Project Gazelle and chatting with you as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenna.
All right, that was perfect. Thank you so much for joining me on the Jena Colbourne Show. A huge thank you to the very brave Maryn Sutherland, who shared her story today. If you would like to learn more about the programming available in our area for survivors of sexual violence, you can get in contact with the Dragonfly Centre. If you would like to support those who are survivors of sexual violence, you can head down to Home Hardware, 𝘀𝗲𝗋, or Bonnyville Health Clinic and pick up a teal ribbon. In the comments right below, I am posting links to Lacuna and Lucidity Wellness Co. so you can find out more about trauma healing through them. And I am also posting links to the Dragonfly Centre as well as Project Gazelle. Anytime you see something on the Jena Colbourne Show and you want to learn more, just make sure you private message us or you can join our group, the Jena Colbourne Show on Facebook. I'm going to put it in the comments as well. Little tip for you guys, hit that notification. It's actually right over there in the top corner, and that's going to let you know when Lakeland Connect is live as well as when this show is live. You can also hit share to let your friends know what we're doing here on the Jena Colbourne Show. And if you ever want to be a guest, whether your story is huge or everyday or something aspirational, it doesn't matter. I love talking with local females. So if you want to be a guest or you know somebody who would be a great guest on the Jena Colbourne Show, please put it in the comments or get a hold of us through direct message. Thank you so much to Chris for producing the show and all of our wonderful guests today.